we sent out an email last week to our downtown stakeholders. The Council of Business Association also shared this same information that provided suggestions on emergency preparedness. So we want to make sure that you have that information. It is on our website, so please, by all means, feel free to go to downtownlongbeach.org to look for that document. And then obviously the police department has their recommendations as well. And we've been in close communications and contact with the police department leading up to this evening. And we'll have an opportunity to ask the police department, the fire department, economic development and public works questions. If you please type in the questions in either the chat box here and on Zoom or in the comments on Facebook. We do have people monitoring those questions, and we'll get to those questions as soon as possible. But if in fact we do run out of time for whatever reason and we haven't answered your question, we'll at least have your email address to respond to in a timely manner. With that, I want to introduce Police Chief Robert Luna. He and his team have made themselves available for this evening to talk about their preparedness as well as what you can do to help really make the job easier for everyone involved. So Chief Luna, thanks very much again for making yourself available this evening, and take it away, please.
Well, good evening. And first of all, Craig, thank you very much for hosting this and putting this together. I think it's very important when the anxiety level is high, as you've described, that we communicate just to kind of straighten out the record and get to facts instead of what people are hearing, because I think that's going to be very important as these days carry on, that we have to remember that we here in Long Beach are in a sense a family, and we do have good relationships and partnerships, and this is the time that we exercise those relationships. So before I get going, I do want to say, and you mentioned it, Craig, I'm here with you. I'll be here with the duration of this phone call. I'm looking forward to the questions. I have the fire chief who will be on the line and some of his command staff members, including Deputy Chief Robbie Greco, who's currently assigned to the Emergency Operations Center with us. I have John Keisler, who all of you know very well, and Eric Lopez, our Public Works Director, and Oscar Orsi. And then I have several members of my command staff who are monitoring this call as well, including Assistant Chief Wally Hebish, and then Deputy Chief Mike Lewis, who's with me. I do come from you this evening. I've spent the entire day in our Emergency Operations Center, and I want to talk a little bit about that. So in regards to what we've been doing, what we're hearing, and what we're thinking as we move forward is, one, our police department has been involved in extensive planning, organizing, equipment acquisition, just doing everything we can to make sure that we are as prepared as we possibly can be. And that's been going on for a while. Part of that is command and control. Our posture leading into this weekend was one of making sure that we were absolutely prepared for anything that may happen, okay? And I'll talk a little bit more about that. Part of that plan and being prepared is that for us as a police department, we activated our Department Operations Center. The other partners in the city will talk about some of the things they've done, but we also up the level of our activation at the Emergency Operations Center starting today. And that's very, very important. So I do want to take a step back, and I want to reiterate this to everybody, that part of our role is not only to keep this city safe, but part of that is to stay in constant communication with our federal, state, and regional partners. And we do so specifically in this last week, where we are in constant communication with several organizations where we're getting updates 3, 4, 5 times a day. And the last message I got from our federal partners was this, and it says, we're not aware of any current credible, violent, or criminal threats to the November 3rd elections in our region. And the region that they're talking about covers 6 counties, including Los Angeles County, which we're a part of. Now, that being said, you may ask, well, why are you getting prepared? I think if I was to see a show of hands of anybody whose anxiety level is up because of this election, I think almost every hand would go up. We are not ignorant to that fact, and we know that people are afraid. That's why starting last Saturday, we went to what we call a stage 2 tactical alert, which means that we have maximized our level of employees that we have out in the field. We've shifted to 12-hour shifts, put more people in uniform, and I am hoping that the majority of the people on this phone call starting this last Saturday saw a significant law enforcement uniform presence in the entertainment areas all over the city. There is no part of the city that we're ignoring. We directed the officers to get out of their cars, make actual face-to-face contact with business owners, business managers, to make sure that you felt our presence, exchange information to the best of all of our ability. And we are out there. And some people have asked, well, if we have nothing to worry about, why are you out here? It's a precautionary measure. And as most of you know, this could change immediately. We also recognize that there is a heightened threat environment due to persistent efforts from outside or efforts by foreign and domestic individuals who are trying to take advantage of our country right now because it's so polarized. That's the part we're not ignoring. So we have to be ready. This police department, this city is in the business of being prepared to respond to anything that may happen, and that's very important. Just a couple of other factors is I want to stress that if you see something, you absolutely have to say something. Earlier today, we had gotten a call in the area of Pine and 6th Street where somebody reported a bunch of abandoned tires being left. Somebody called us and said, hey, this looks strange. And you know what? We got that call and it made the hair on my neck stand up. Why is somebody throwing a bunch of tires close to the downtown area? And you know that if you follow civil unrest, that's one of the tools that's used. So we were able to get out there and remove those. And it's those very important factors. We need you as our eyes and ears. Nothing is unimportant. You got to give us a call. Let us look into it. Let us determine if it's worthy of follow-up. And then from that perspective, we'll keep each other very safe. Right before I turn it over to my partners, and again, I'm going to be here and other police department personnel will be here to answer any questions. We did find out a couple hours ago that there is now a scheduled protest that's going to take place at 3 p.m. tomorrow. It's supposed to take place at 300 East Ocean. I don't want that to over-alarm anybody. I don't know if you know this or not, but our police department has handled 131 protests since May 31st. And almost every single one of them have gone very well. Our police department, our leadership has gotten very, very good at being able to manage these events, making sure that we're protecting people's First Amendment rights to protest. That's part of what makes our country great. But I can assure you, and this is coming from me right here, right now, because of statements that were made based on what happened at the end of May, that in our event objectives that every employee gets for our police department, we are making it a priority response to send our officers to any violent crimes that include looting, arson, or any potential large-scale property damage. We have a lot of officers that have been doing a lot of training and from lessons learned, and we're ready to take very decisive and appropriate action to prevent unlawful behavior. And I don't want to confuse that with people who are out there exercising their First Amendment rights. We will facilitate, we encourage protest, but we will not tolerate violence. I just want to make sure everybody understands that. And with that, I'm going to quickly turn it over to the fire chief. And then right after that, I want John Keisler to talk about the business aspect of some of the things that we as a city are focused on. We don't want our businesses impacted. We don't. And we're going to do everything within our power to make sure that doesn't happen. So with that, Fire Chief X, I'll turn it over to you. Now, I just want to make sure, Craig, you want to save all the questions for the end, or just to make sure we're doing this the way you'd like?
Yeah, that's fine, Chief. Let's just go and let's talk about fire, and then to John, and then maybe we could open up some questions, because they're already lining up. The questions are.
Good evening. This is Robbie Gregg. I'm one of the deputy chiefs here with fire. Chief Espino is unable to get on right now, so I'm going to represent him for now. So similar comments of Chief Luna. We've been preparing for this as well. We're actively engaged. We're here at the EOC right now as we're engaged in this conversation. So fire is also preparing, and we're Can you guys hear me? So fire, yes. We're in step with the police department as well.
Yeah, and Craig, I'll jump in. For those of you who don't know me, I'm John Keisler. I'm the your Economic Development Director. And as the chief stated, not only has the city stood up its Emergency Operations Center to coordinate between all of the different department heads and all of the different agencies that will coordinate over the next couple days. But economic development has its own department operations center, which has been activated and which ultimately meets every single day among our management team, so that we can make sure that we have all that real-time information for our business owners, our business association leaders, and many of you who will contact us directly for information. We also have our 570-4BIZ hotline going. You can call that during regular business hours, and we will be not only providing updates to the call center so that business owners have their own hotline, non-emergency, to ask questions, as well as whether it's frequently asked questions or we need to go find you a response. But you can call 570-4BIZ at any time during regular business hours. You can also email 4biz, 4BIZ at longbeach.gov. And that will be an email that goes through to our management team. And then what we can promise you is that we will be monitoring both the phone number as well as the voicemail, as well as the email for business owners specifically for non-emergency questions, and getting back to you with standard answers. I say that because you can always go to your business improvement district leaders. They all have my cell phone number as well as the cell phone number of Eric Romero. They can text us, as we've done throughout this emergency related to COVID-19. So I want you to know that we in the city are prepared. We've been prepared for the last few days as we always monitor these different events, and we stay very, very close-knit in communication. So even though it's a big city, the chief will text or call for anything he needs if he has to get a message out to you all. So you will get information very, very quickly. And then we will proactively be distributing information as we do via email through our constant contact email blasts through our social media and of course on our website, so that you have proactive information coming your way. And some of it is just to reassure you that there is no credible or current threat, or there could be something that we want to share because of information that we've received. So I'm going to be answering questions. And I think maybe just we want to introduce Eric Lopez as well. He's the Director of Public Works and a very important person for everything that occurs in our city. So Eric, do you want to just introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. Thanks, John. Hello, everybody. Eric Lopez, your Director of Public Works. We do all of the street maintenance, and we coordinate with both PD and fire and all the other involved departments. If there's a need, we have crews that are available, standing by, and ready to assist. And we have a lot of different equipment and supplies at our immediate disposal. So I'll just be here, sit back, answer any questions that may come up related to Public Works, or whenever the team needs me, I'll be here.
Great, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate that. Brock is monitoring one of the chat rooms. Brock, do you want to start by asking some of the questions and directing it to the individuals? One question I want to kind of lead with. Chief, could you or somebody from your team talk about the steps, if necessary, taking the steps to call the National Guard? Because I know that is a process and it's not something that can be done right away.
Yes, Craig. In order for us, if I need more help, if I need more law enforcement help, we have a system that we follow. What I have to do is my department contacts the LA County Sheriff's Department, the Emergency Operations Bureau, and immediately lets them know that we need assistance. And by the way, part of our preparation is we're in constant contact with them. We're communicating with them on a daily basis. Actually, every city in LA County is. So what happens is if we start needing more assistance from a law enforcement agency, we go through them. They will be the first responding police units to our city. If for some reason they're unavailable to show up, the mutual aid system starts calling in other agencies from LA County if they're not impacted. They have the ability to immediately go outside the county, whether that's Orange County sheriffs or Orange County, who's right next door to us, or other counties such as San Bernardino, Riverside, or Ventura. During the end of May, we had what we call a platoon of officers come from Ventura County. At that point, if the law enforcement resources are being expanded, or not expanded, but utilized, then at that point, LA County gets a hold of the Office of Emergency Services for the state of California. And that's when the calls start coming in, not only to get help from the rest of the state from a law enforcement perspective, but to activate the National Guard. So it's not one of these, I know I got a lot of questions months ago, why didn't you get the National Guard in here sooner? The system does not work that way. But there are National Guard units that have been activated in other states. I know of no effort here in California, but there is a lot of communication going on between all the law enforcement agencies here regionally.
Okay, thank you very much, Craig and Chief. This is Brock Howard. Let me jump in with a number of the questions, but I think off the top, following up on Craig's question was, what are the police department's recommendations as it relates to boarding up one's businesses or frontage for residential buildings?
Thank you for that question, Brock. We as a city, that includes a police department, we're not recommending that somebody board up, but if somebody says, hey, I'm boarding up, we're not discouraging it either. We believe that's an independent decision by a business owner. If you decide to do so, you absolutely have the right to protect your business in any which way you can. I can tell you this, that there are other businesses in Long Beach that have been boarded up. The count I have as of about an hour ago, we're about at 40, maybe a little bit over 40 businesses that have boarded up. I respect anybody's right to protect their business. But I'll tell you what, as soon as people start boarding up around the city, that is contributing to the level of anxiety that's out there, that something is going to happen. And so it's a tough spot for us to be in. My focus is to make sure that our plan, our equipment, and our leadership is ready to respond to any event that happens in the city. And I already mentioned it earlier. One of our top priorities is not to allow any looting or arson to occur. And we're going to be very proactive to make sure to do everything within our power to make sure that doesn't happen.
Okay, thank you. Another popular question right now is knowing a little bit more about the theme of the protest, who the organizers are, and what that protest theme is for tomorrow. Can that be shared?
Yeah, we're currently looking into that. It is our objective that any time we have any protest, I don't care who the groups are, that we make contact with them as soon as possible, and we develop a relationship with them, at least to communicate with them and let them know that we're here to facilitate First Amendment activity and kind of parameters about things that we will not allow, which include some of the things I mentioned earlier about violence or property destruction. So we're making sure that occurs. From the little bit I know, and we're still in the process of learning more about this group that we just found out several hours ago. I don't believe they have a history of violence, but at the end of the day, we're going to contact them just like we would contact anybody else with the goal of keeping everybody safe. But we're going to have, we're going to be very prepared for anything that may happen. So we'll be front and center, make sure that doesn't happen. A lot of times, just so all of you know, our approach is, a lot of times when you see protesters, you will not see a huge visible presence of uniformed personnel. But I guarantee you this, we are there, we are close, and very prepared to respond. But we don't want to be the ones that antagonize any group, which includes being accused of not allowing First Amendment activity. So yeah, that's the end of that answer, and I stand here ready for any other questions.
Thank you, Chief. Another question kind of along the same lines, but yeah, and I think you've touched on this in your opening remarks, but maybe you could go a little bit more into those rapid response teams that you shared recently to the business districts and others. Those teams seem to be directed towards civil unrest if needed. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll do the best I can. The only thing I will not discuss publicly are staffing numbers and specific tactics. As you may understand, stuff like this gets out, and there are people, unfortunately, who really monitor us very closely and just are waiting for us to make a mistake or somehow get an advantage on us. And please remember that for us, our ultimate goal is to keep you safe and try and keep your property from being damaged. So we are going to be out with, I would say, if you look at our regular deployment, we've almost quadrupled it, if not by 5. And the officers all have specific functions, and they're ready to respond anywhere in the city where we're having challenges. And we've built specific teams with a specific skill base, just their expertise in doing different things that we believe will integrate best with, again, our priority, facilitating First Amendment activity. And we are absolutely making sure that it is peaceful that the protesters are meeting their objectives. But if we have groups, and it's usually not the protesters, it's the smaller groups that come in, we have the ability to deal with them specifically. And we've gotten really, really good at this over the last several months as we've studied not only what's happened here in Long Beach, but across the country, and are in constant communication with other law enforcement agencies across the country who have either been very successful or have failed and learned some significant lessons. Thank you.
Thank you. This question goes to voter access to the polling sites. Should there be protests that's blocking one's way to a polling site? And a second question, a follow-up question to that would be, are there concerns, are there parameters for police presence near polling sites?
Yeah, thank you. Those are excellent questions. Part of our preparation over the last several months is to make sure that every one of our officers understands election law. So we've met extensively with our city clerk and our city attorney and provided information to all of our officers. But a couple of very important points here. One, every state is different in what they allow or don't allow regarding law enforcement in and around polling places. California is pretty strict. They don't want to see police officers at polling places because there are some people that believe that police intimidate people. Obviously, that is not our goal. We don't intimidate, or at least I'd like to think we don't intimidate people from voting. So LA County is actually in charge of voting in the city of Long Beach. And they have a structure in place that deals with, for example, any conflict that may arise, a dispute of some kind. So with our system in place, the county is the first line of defense. They would try and handle most situations. And in the past, they've been very successful. But we have layers built in so that eventually, depending on the scenario, a police officer or officers would respond to make sure that we're keeping the peace, that people are absolutely able to vote. And even if we get complaints of, for example, electioneering, which you get periodically, that 100-foot rule from the polling place, again, we're not the first line of defense, but we have many additional resources to help deal with that as well, along with our calls for service units that are apart from a lot of the teams that we've put together to deal with any possibility that may happen that day.
Great, thank you. Going back to one of the examples you were using of the dumped tires, do you happen to know who dumped those tires, or did you feel it was purposeful that those tires were dumped there?
I am suspicious by nature, like every police officer is. And until I can prove that it's a legit deal, maybe somebody was just dumping them because they're a slob. I don't know. It could be something as simple as littering or dumping, which is still against the law. But at this point, our hackles are up. A lot of things should be red flags right now to all of us. And we want to make sure we don't miss anything. And that means I don't want any of you to miss anything. So everything is going to be looked at and investigated to the best of our capabilities, so we prevent any significant negative events happening in our city.
Great. It's been mentioned as well in the chat room. If we see on our TVs, we see that on the East Coast that there's issues with civil unrest on the East Coast, and that's obviously 3-hour lead time for us. what will the city consider a curfew, and what are those steps to considering a curfew?
So part of the command and control posture that we've taken for the last several weeks, which has intensified over the weekend, our Department Operations Center has been activated. And one of the roles they have is to monitor not only our city events, but regional, national, and any world events that may impact us. Again, I talked about the conversations, the communication that we're having with our federal, state, and regional partners. So we should have the finger on the pulse of any civil unrest that may occur any place in the United States and any direct impact to Long Beach. Obviously, if we start seeing civil unrest as a result of anything election related, that is very concerning to us, and we will start taking the appropriate steps. I don't know if most of you know this, but we've been following some civil unrest that has occurred this last week in the city of Philadelphia, in the city of Washington, D.C., and in the city of New York. All those have been related to some type of police use of force and officer-involved shooting. We're very cognizant of that and really ready to respond. So that will definitely up our posture as to how we approach things in the field. In regards to a curfew, that is definitely a tool that we have in our toolbox. I have had extensive conversations today with our city manager, Mr. Tom Modica, our city attorney, Charlie Parkin, and his staff. And what we do is almost like a tabletop exercise. If this happens, this is what we're going to do. If this happens, this is this contingency. What are the triggers? We see something happening in the country. We see something happening next door in Los Angeles. What are we going to do? And that's not just curfew related. It's all these other tools that we may or may not be able to use. But I can assure you that curfew is a very effective tool, but it's a tool that's taken very serious. And what I mean by that is we understand that by setting a curfew, we're really infringing on people's rights. So we have to make sure we're 100% sure that we have all the things in the right places for the right reasons in order for a curfew to be enacted. But we're ready to roll with something like that, and let's pray we don't need it.
Great. And before we lead to the next question, just a comment, a suggestion to remind everyone, or to put a statement out if it hasn't already gone out, that there are curfews in place for minors, of course.
That's an excellent point, Brock, and I just wanted to bring something up. That this last Saturday night, we had over 200 juveniles come into the Pike. I don't know what their intention was, but the last time we had that large of a group, there was a couple of shootings that occurred, some negative activities surrounding that. Because we had a full deployment and then some, our officers did an amazing job of handling that incident. Or handling the incident with all the juveniles, where we did arrest several juveniles for curfew violation after curfew at 10 p.m. So our officers were all over it, and I really got to congratulate our leadership that handled that superbly. And my understanding is a lot of the business owners in the Pike were very happy, very nervous at first when they saw the large group coming, but we had cops everywhere. Very visible out there, and I'm happy to report that as of right now, I don't know of any negative incidences that happened as a result of it.
Great, thank you. There's a couple questions out there. Are you concerned at all about, and you did mention that, you know, that you're naturally, you know, in a position of questioning intentions and whatnot when it comes to some of these actions, but is there concern about the non-specifics related to the protest tomorrow? Does that kind of raise your suspicion because it doesn't seem to provide any particulars? It's somewhat general.
We approach a lot of our protests the same way. It's almost like we have great leadership in this police department that are able to look at things from a different perspective. So think of your business. You have somebody in your group who is a great communicator and just loves to try and compromise and talk to people. And I like to think that we have a lot of people like that. But every time we have somebody focused in that direction, we also have somebody looking at worst case scenario and contingencies, triggers, anything that may go wrong, and kind of a staggered tiered approach as to what we would do in case of. So there is no protest that's going to occur, especially in these next couple of weeks, where we are not going to be looking at everything, a 360 of every potentiality. And that's what, again, I'm going to keep on repeating this, that if any of you get any information, whether it's off of social media, you hear rumors, please let us know, because people do talk and they share information with each other. And if we get any indication that, for example, people are putting weapons out there, placing rocks, people are getting dressed up for this event with some kind of body armor on or helmets, those are things we need to know. But as of right now, we have no information that anything like that's going to happen. And I hope these individuals who are protesting are out here for all the right reasons, and they just want to exercise their right to protest.
It sounds as though your rapid response teams and the crowd control that you have, strategies that you have in place, are also intended for any spontaneous violence that might occur, not only tomorrow, not only on the 4th, but can you mention to anyone, or can you go into a little bit more detail of how the police force stands ready beyond the next 2 days, 3 days? Sounds like this might be an effort that's sustained.
There is an effort that's being sustained. If you think about policing these days, and you think about, for example, the defunding movement, reconciliation, all these things that the Long Beach Police Department has been very engaged in, and I could say it goes back several years. If you think of all the training people want us to do, what do you hear about? You hear about training for mental illness. You hear about training for implicit bias, procedural justice. I could go down a list of things where people want policing to change. Nowhere in that did you hear have police better prepared for civil unrest. And you really got to think a little deeper on that as to where we were, say, 6-8 months ago compared to where we are now, because of the world that surrounds us and all the concerns. We are different today than we were even a year ago. And that's not to say we're still doing our procedural justice and implicit bias training, but we're also a lot more focused on that worst case scenario, which is civil unrest, to protect our community and to protect our officers. And at the end of the day, I have a message for anyone who's going to come to the city and think that they're going to commit acts of violence or destroy property. I'm warning you right now. You're in for something that's not going to be good for you. And as you saw just recently, we put out another press release where we've arrested 47 people for the looting that occurred back on the 31st. We're not screwing around. You come to our city, you steal from us, you hurt us, we're going to come after you. Of course, in a legal way and in an appropriate manner, but don't come to Long Beach and hurt our people.
Thank you, Chief. This one goes out to both PD and to DLBA, and that's what are the tools that will be used for communication to get out warnings and alerts to the community? Why don't we have Chief, why don't we have you go first, and then we can have Samantha from DLBA to provide some information on DLBA's behalf.
So amongst the many strategies that we have worked on, a big one is external communications. and internal communications. So Karen Owens, who's kind of our wizard in the police department, and Aranza, and working with our city PIO, Kevin Lee, we're going to do everything we can to communicate out police-related matters. John's on the phone with us, him and his staff, and I think they do very good in communicating to our business community. So in regards to our business community, they're going to take the lead on it, but we're going to be feeding information to them. And if anything starts happening where we feel that you need to know anything from us that may impact your businesses, the communities that you specifically live in, we will do our best to let you know. And I'll tell you what, Craig has been texting me. I think I could make one of those State Farm commercials with my wife. Wants to know who I'm talking to in the dark at night because he's making me the text, the phone calls. He's all over me. But you know what? It's on your behalf. And I really respect that. And Mike Lewis, Commander Lieberman, all of our patrol division commanders have been directed to communicate more than they ever have. So if you're not hearing from us, please let me know and we'll modify that.
There are a lot of comments on here thanking PD and first responders for your presence and for the work that you do. However, a couple specific questions came out. What can businesses do to support first responders? And a second kind of follow-up question to that is whether you think businesses should stay open or close tomorrow. Does it matter? Is there a better way to support first responders from a business perspective? So first one is there any way to support first responders, perhaps setting up stations or anything like that for them? Is there anything that they can do to help? And then secondly, from a general standpoint, open or closed, does PD have an opinion on that?
Regarding the support for our officers, I really appreciate that question. I think our officers need to know that our businesses support them in any which way they can. And a lot of that is just, if you see an officer out there, come out and say hello, engage them in conversation, ask them about themselves. I think people forget that behind this uniform, there's a human being, somebody who left a family at home and their families are really worried about them. So any engagement from that perspective always helps. Even if you offer them a cup of water with ice, if they're out there, because you'd be surprised how many people just look at this uniform and say derogatory things to our men and women. And our men and women are special people. So thank you for asking that question and just acknowledge them and say hello. That's huge. In regards to businesses being open or closed, again, just like boarding up, that has to be a personal decision. We'll let you know if something changes from a threat perspective. But I think all of you know anything could happen at any time. So just like you just got to make that decision on your own. If you feel nervous about it and it's creating anxiety for you, I'd say close up and go home and have a soda or whatever you do to calm down and entertain yourself. But no, we're not going to offer an opinion as a city or as a police department, whether you should be open or closed, but you should be monitoring the normal way you guys communicate through the businesses. That way, if for some reason you miss something and we know something's happening, we can get a hold of you.
Great, thank you. And I neglected to give Sam, our communications manager, an opportunity to provide DLBA's communications tools. Sam, will you jump in?
Yeah, so the Downtown Long Beach Alliance is also going to be communicating with the community and with our stakeholders frequently over the next week and coming days. We have sort of a three-pronged approach to doing that. So you can sign up for email alerts. We'll be sending out advisories with information about any planned demonstrations or ongoing events that could affect downtown. We also have a text alert system for similar information, and we'll be pushing out information on social media channels. So to sign up for all that, you just have to go to downtownlongbeach.org and click the little sign up button at the top right corner, and follow us on social media accounts. And I will drop that information in the chat as well.
Great, thank you, Sam. And I know that city staff have also been busy dropping links and other resources for folks to stay informed, not only as it relates to emergencies, but just ongoing. Back to the chief and staff for questions. Chief, what is the role of the mayor and city council in determining your tactics? Do they have any role in the tactics being determined by PD?
There are policymakers, and they always have input to the way their police department performs out in the field. And many of them are constantly asking me questions about our policies, our procedures, our training. How do we handle this? They're very engaged in what I do as a police chief, as what we do as a police department. I think our community is very lucky to have them. But at the same time, in times of emergencies, they do step back. The city manager's fully engaged. We're constantly talking about decisions that are being made, whether they deal with any of the items I talked about a little while ago, and or even when it comes to any significant issues that may occur personnel related, that they have an opinion just like our community does. Yeah, I always tell people I'm very blessed to work in the city and have the elected officials that we do thus far that really care about this community, but they also let us do our work. And their priority is to keep this community safe.
So it sounds like what you're saying is there's a place and a role that's being played as it relates to policy, but in terms of strategy, that's game time strategy, that's something that that the electeds are respecting in terms of PD decision making.
They are, but trust me, they have opinions. And every one of them watches their districts very closely. They want to make sure that their districts are not negatively impacted, and the members of their community. And that's fair, right? We elect them to do that, take care of their constituency, and we find what I believe to be an excellent balance in this city of public safety.
Thank you for that. As you can imagine, folks are concerned about what they see nationally as it relates to organized crime or militia groups, hate groups. To the extent that you can, will you address that and how PD is cognizant of those players in the election and beyond?
Yes, one of the many challenges that we face in law enforcement are all the groups that you just mentioned. And there's some on the far right, and there's some on the far left. And a lot of them are very dangerous to each other, to our community, and to our officers. So as I started this conversation, I talked about our constant communication with our federal, state, and regional partners. We have officers, detectives, who are experts in those areas. They study those areas. They communicate constantly with investigators from other law enforcement agencies. So we're keeping up with patterns and trends to really stay on top of anything that may happen specifically here in Long Beach. I'm very confident in our ability to make sure that the individuals with those ideologies are not negatively impacting our city whenever we have an opportunity. But it's a challenge in law enforcement today. There's so many things that we have to keep an eye on. And I'm very proud to say that we have amazing people who are doing just that.
Thank you, Chief. Another question, the current alert status that we have right now that you mentioned was instituted on Saturday. How long would that current alert level be maintained? You mentioned that there are triggers that you use, plenty of information incoming that help you make decisions, but is there any information you can give us in terms of the current alert status, and would that be maintained, say, for instance, 7 days after the election? I think folks want to know, going back again to that question of PD staying on status alert days after the election.
Yeah, I can't sit here. I know excellent question. And as a resident of the city, which I am, I'd like to know what our police department's doing at all times. I'm going to keep this status up as long as it's necessary. I can't go on forever because part of my role as a chief of police is I have to be fiscally responsible. We are in the middle of a financial crisis as a city. So I have to be very cognizant of that. But I've been in constant communication with the city manager. He understands the importance of us doing exactly what we're doing now. I'm really hopeful that, maybe this election will be decided tomorrow night. And wouldn't it be awesome if we all wake up Wednesday morning and, everybody's behaving. And actually, I expect everyone in our city to behave. We have an outstanding city. Whether it was COVID or even the civil unrest we had for 6 or 7 hours earlier in the year, overall, our city, our community has behaved extremely well. Very proud of them. And I'm really hoping that that continues throughout this week. And if it does, we'll be able to, as a city policy group, as a police command staff, make good decisions based on data, facts, looking at the national events, the regional events, and what's going on. And hopefully, I get to send a lot of people home to their families. That would be great. So you guys could pass the message, let everybody know we need everyone to behave for the next couple of weeks. That'd be awesome.
All right, we'll make sure we'll get that memo out. Chief, maybe some curiosity here from folks about the tactics for PD in terms of riot gear and rubber bullets. Are these things that are part of your repertoire in response to civil unrest?
Now, when we're talking, remember, when we have protests, and I talked about having 131 of those, I would say 99% of those 131 protests, we never had to don riot gear. We didn't have to use some of the munitions that we have to keep our community and our officers safe. It's very rare that we have to do that. It's only as a last resort. But our job is to protect our community. And in order to protect our community, we need to put the best tools in our officers' hands that are only utilized when significant violence and or significant property damage is occurring. That's the standard. That's our training. Those are our policies. And I expect that to continue.
Okay. And Chief, I think this is something that went out from PD, and I think DLBA has shared it, but for those businesses citywide that have this question, there's been a recommendation, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a recommendation that businesses that may have street furniture, even residential units that may have street furniture out, be sure that they can secure that furniture rapidly in the event of an alert, a community alert, so that they can secure and bring that furniture inside. Is that correct?
That was given as a precautionary measure. Again, we have no specific information that anything's going to happen, but I think just like we prepare for earthquakes and other negative activity, I think it's important for all of us, whether you're at home or your business, to have a plan, a what if plan. And that's important. And then I do want to remind everybody that through Alert Long Beach, which all of you should follow through our social media, we're pumping out. I have staff who are working their tails off to put information out specifically on our social media. And for anybody who has a business anywhere within our 50 square miles, we're geographically divided. And Deputy Chief Mike Lewis has directed his patrol commanders to be in contact, constant contact, and outreach with our business owners in each division. So if anybody has a concern or a question, please reach out to your patrol commander. They have been tasked. They're not off right now. They're working long hours just to make sure they're in contact and collaborating with our business partners, our community partners. This is a partnership.
Thank you. Chief, we'll give you a rest for a moment here. We're wondering if fire can answer any questions as it relates to violence and how the fire department would respond, and are they prepared for providing assistance to residents and others in the community, businesses and whatnot?
Yeah, thank you for that question. This is Deputy Chief Robbie Grego. Absolutely, we're prepared to respond as always. Our engine and truck companies, paramedic, EMT ambulances will respond to all and any emergencies that we've been dispatched to. Potential for any issues going on, we'll partner with PD, but fire is prepared to continue to provide the same service we provide daily, and we'll respond to any calls for service that we're asked to.
And I imagine, Deputy Chief, that it's one of those things that that PD and fire are in close contact with each other should there be a need for assistance in reaching a location.
No, absolutely, Brock. So we train with our brothers in blue, the PD, on a daily basis. Unfortunately, if some type of unrest occurs, when we do respond in, they do provide us with security, but absolutely partner with them every day. And again, I want to make it very clear that any calls for service, 911, whether it be a structure fire or EMS call, fire will respond to any call for service.
Okay. Chief, thank you very much, Deputy Chief. Chief Luna, is PD the correct, I guess, agency or department to address concerns of voter intimidation near polling sites?
Thank you. I was unmuting the computer here. You can definitely call us, and then we'll get the right people out there. Election law prohibits people from blocking access to voting locations, and election officials will be the first ones to tell anyone out there who's causing a problem, whether it's a protester or whomever, to kind of clear the area. And our experience has been thus far that they're very effective. But if there are any issues where somebody feels unsafe, you can always call us. And if we're not going to go out there, we will absolutely direct you to the right person. We don't want, if our city's going to make the news, I want it to be because we're leading and setting an example of how to behave, not how to misbehave. That's our goal as a city.
Thank you for that. One final question here, Chief, and I think this is something you've touched on here and there in your answers, but this is that difficult issue of that folks see the contradiction of folks protesting and exerting their rights, but also perhaps not practicing COVID guidelines. And so some of the questions that we're seeing in the chat room have to do with enforcement of COVID-19 safety guidelines versus the individuals and their rights to protest. Do you want to say anything more on that?
You know what? Yeah, because that's a very good question, and it's a tough one. The health order is obviously important. The health of our community is very important, but I don't think any of that trumps the First Amendment. And I don't think I don't know if there's any court anywhere that would uphold the enforcement of a health order over a group of individuals who are peacefully protesting, exercising their First Amendment rights. So we have to be very cautious. But what we do see is that a lot of the people who come to protest, at least in our city, I see many of them practicing good physically distance rules, and a lot of them wearing face coverings. That's a very good thing. Hopefully that will continue because, as you see, there appears to be some kind of a surge with this pandemic, and we don't want more people to get sick in our city.
Very good, thank you. I guess at this point in time, we've really exhausted most of the common questions that were being asked, and I would put it to any of the department heads if there's something that they also would like to share before we turn it back over to Craig Kojan. Let's start with John Keisler. John, anything from you?
Yeah, I think so. First and foremost, I want to thank DLBA and Craig in particular for providing this forum. I think it's critical that we get information out there and that you see our faces. Most of us are Long Beach residents. We're also members of the city family, the city team that serves you. And we take this oath and this responsibility very seriously. So it's really critical that you get to ask questions and see our faces, and ultimately have access to the best information out there. There is going to be a lot of rumors. There's going to be a lot of misinformation over the next few days. So please call us, contact Craig, contact us, and know that we learned a lot in the last few months, especially in previous incidents. And what I'm seeing from my colleagues, whether it's police or it's public works or development services, we're prepared, standing by. And even though there are no credible threats, we're prepared in ways that we've learned and we've prepared for in ways that perhaps we weren't ready for in past incidents. So we just want you to know that we're available to you. We're also accessible to you, and we care deeply. So thank you so much again, Craig, and for your team bringing us together.
Thank you, John. I'm going to turn now to Eric Lopez over at Public Works, Director of Public Works. Eric?
Thank you, Brock. The only thing I would add is that we work day and night. We don't take time off. So if anything happens and our services are needed, we are ready to immediately respond. So a lot of us coordinate really closely. We text each other, we call each other. Sometimes we wake each other up at midnight or at 6 in the morning or at 3 in the morning, whatever is required. So just wanted to provide that assurance, and thank Craig, thank the chief and the other department heads here that have participated here today. Thank you.
Thanks for those comments, Eric. Oscar Orsi, your Development Services Director, would you like to have any comments?
No, I just wanted to thank everybody, and I agree with all what my colleagues have said, and I look forward to working with you all through this election campaigning and decision-making process, as well as I look forward to working with all the rest of the groups for the venue with the venue task force for to help us curb and slow down this pandemic, and hopefully we can get back to a new normal in a relatively short time. So thank you.
Thank you, Oscar. Deputy Chief Grego, would you like to sum it up with any final comments from Fire?
Yeah, thank you for that. So I also want to thank the LBA and Craig. Thank you for the opportunity to come on here and answer any questions. We're thankful to be able to serve this community, and we appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak freely.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Craig, it's all yours.
Yeah, thanks, Brock. Appreciate you managing the questions that were asked. I appreciate those questions that were asked, and thank the chiefs for being here this evening. Thanks, John and Oscar and Eric as well. It's a great partnership that we have. Again, this is more about a citywide effort than just downtown, and that's why this information was being shared to all business associations in the city, from Uptown, Bixby Knolls, Belmont Shore, Midtown, Magnolia Industrial Group, all the hotels. I think it's really important that we get this information out, and it's just not a downtown issue. Yes, downtown was hit, Uptown was hit in May, but these things are, they're fluid. And certainly we want to be able to protect all aspects of our city and our community. And I want to thank the chiefs for being available on short notice and making themselves available, and certainly the directors who I know work night and day, and I could vouch for that, and certainly the stakeholders of this city. And so if you see something, say something, reach out to someone who could help, and that's whether or not it's calling 911 or using the text alerts. We will be monitoring this situation on a very, very close basis. We're hopeful that nothing does happen, but certainly we will be able to provide information as the information becomes available through our social media channels. I think the rest of the improvement districts throughout the city will do the same thing. Again, sign up for those alerts, whether it's the city's alerts or DLBA's alerts. Just keep yourself informed, and again, try to verify this information, and we'll be doing the same thing and sending it out on an as needed basis. So I want to thank everyone who helped get this message out tonight. And we had a few hundred people join us, not only on Zoom, but also on Facebook. So I think we're getting the word out. Just let's keep up the great work, keep the door open for communications, and let's hope for some safe days ahead. Thank you again, everyone. Appreciate it, and have a great night.